Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you folks are doing well out there this morning and having a great start to your day and a great weekend out there so far. Of course, it's been incredibly active over the last couple days. We know what happened Friday, and yesterday was a very weird day where we had isolated tornadoes throughout the afternoon, even into the late afternoon, early evening across like northern Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. But, at one point you could almost say, okay, this is not materializing as high end as what was forecast. And then the sun set or was beginning to set, and then it started to get dark outside, and then we had the nocturnal tornado threat that did unfold, unfortunately, across central areas of Oklahoma. There was a lot of towns that were struck, a lot of damage that was done. I woke up and, was looking at my feed off social media, and it was very unfortunate what happened after the sun went down, as basically the low-level jet began to ramp up. The tornado threat actually increased as we were ending our day yesterday into last night. So I hope you guys are doing okay in Oklahoma. I haven't heard about a figure of loss of life, fatalities. I read a couple tweets out there we'll post on social media, X, Twitter, whatever you call it, that was saying there was some reports of fatalities. So I'm praying for everybody, and I'm sure we're all going to pray for you folks in the Southern Plains, as we got very lucky Friday with no loss of life, but I don't think we're going to have the same news in central Oklahoma. So we just you guys definitely comment. Let me know what you're hearing in central Oklahoma. Yeah, unfortunately, we have another day of severe weather out ahead of us, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to try to keep you guys aware and ahead of what's going to happen, and we're going to break it down for you folks. Each individual area that has a threat level, not as high end of a threat today as yesterday, but we could have several tornadoes again, especially around the Texarkana region, northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma, southwest Arkansas. We'll really zoom into that area, but we'll talk about everybody. So after we do that, we'll break down the entire rest of the country, and then we'll speak a little bit on what's to come as far as severe weather. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it, and so many others can do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling. So we got the area of storms basically stretching from deep down here in Texas all the way up into Missouri. Now, once you start to get, even into eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, Missouri, points north and northeast, this begins to lose some intensity. In fact, even where the most intense storms are this morning, as of right now, you don't have any severe warned storms. So this is definitely causing a ruckus down here in Texas, but, nothing severe. Just more so widespread heavy rain. We do have a lot of flash flood warnings out there. We were expecting this. And then this rain kind of takes on a different directional flow once it begins to ride around this ridge that's over the southeast and the eastern U.S. It's basically been protecting us from all the severe weather. That's why all the severe weather has not really progressed eastward over the last few days. Typically, it starts in the plains, kind of goes to the deep south, the Ohio Valley, then eventually gets to the mid-Atlantic southeast, maybe even the northeast. Has not been the case with this one because a ridge has really prevented all this energy from getting into the eastern U.S. Now, the flow on top of this ridge is allowing a lot of moisture to kind of surge into like northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire this morning. So we're getting some heavy rain up here, maybe some rumbles of thunder. And then we got the immediate surface low up here. You see this spin right here over Nebraska, South Dakota. This is a chilly rain. In fact, some snowflakes are trying to mix in areas of Nebraska right now. So the immediate western U.S., you got a little energy flying through in the Pacific Northwest. Nothing too crazy though. So that's what's going on right now. Let's continue to talk about watches, warnings, and the flooding situation that could evolve today also, and then we'll dive deep into the severe weather outlook. So we do have those flood watches up right now in the green color. We got numerous flash flood warnings ongoing in the red colors. We got severe thunderstorm now. I think this is old. Let's see if we can upgrade this or update this. Take your time. No need to rush. We do have some alerts for severe weather. We had some wind advisories in areas out here in the tan color. We've got lingering winter weather advisories up here in the Rockies of Colorado, all the way up to the Laramie Range here in Wyoming. And then we got up here in the Cascades in the Pacific Northwest some winter weather advisories. Even have some winter weather advisories up here in northeast Minnesota, where you guys like to hang on to winter for dear life up here. But the eastern U.S. is quiet. The ridge is going to dominate today, which will lead to stable, calm conditions like we've seen over the last several days. But the entire yellow area here, that is a at least a 15% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles at any given point. So we do have a threat of flash flooding today across this entire yellow area, and even a risk of it in the green, just not near as high, I don't think. So let's go on and dive in into the severe weather risk for today. So we do have that upgrade to an enhanced risk. If you remember, for a few days we were thinking, okay, Sunday is going to dramatically drop off. We only have a slight risk, but unfortunately they did put the enhanced risk, and we just have more confidence now that there is going to be widespread severe weather. This stretches from Springfield all the way through Shreveport. I mean, includes the Texarkana region, pretty much includes Little Rock. It goes all the way down to about an hour or two north of Houston. Houston included in a slight risk. Slight risk in the yellow extends all the way up from southern sections of Iowa, including areas of western, southwestern Illinois. Almost includes the entire state. It includes a good section of eastern Arkansas, all the way down to central Louisiana, all the way down to Houston, the Gulf Coast line, Dallas, Fort Worth, Tulsa included in this, Kansas City included in this. So marginal risk all the way up here, all the way down here, Gulf Coast, all the way to almost Minneapolis. So we do have a threat of some thunderstorms that will get going here in the northeast today with some flow that will around the top of the ridge. And we do have to watch for a marginal risk to get issued up here. I wouldn't be surprised for some hail. We'll see what happens. So, of course, the outlooks here, there's that 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. I'm going to zoom into some of these areas. I'm really looking at this broad look for these folks in the northern areas. But there is a 5% chance of a tornado that extends all the way up into central Missouri. Wind threat, 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour that extends all the way up to Springfield. This red area right here, 15% risk of that goes all the way up into areas of Illinois and then southern Iowa. Hail threat, 15% risk in the yellow area of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And of course, we have the hatch risk down here that we're about to zoom in on. In fact, we're doing it right now. So here it is. Here's the threat. That zoomed in look we like to look at. It shows towns, cities, communities, all those good things. Fayetteville, Fort Smith, Conway, Arkansas, Hot Springs, Little Rock, right on the edge of a slight enhanced risk. But don't focus too much on that. Just know that you do have a threat of severe weather today. Texarkana, Shreveport, all the way deep down here in the east central sections of Texas. Slight risk, Houston, Waco, Dallas, up to Tulsa, all the way to Jonesboro. Includes Pine Bluff, Monroe, Alexandria, Lake Charles, and all these regions into here. Then we got the marginal risk that extends around that. What is this driven off of? Well, like I said, we do have, unfortunately, that increased tornado threat. In the yellow, we have a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Mary, I know you're a loyal viewer. You're right into this. You're going to get some nasty storms today. Stay safe. Stay aware. If you don't know who Mary is, she's a loyal viewer here in Northeast Texas, a supporter of my channel. I appreciate you very much, and definitely saying a prayer for you and everybody in this threat level. But Texarkana region, you guys, 10% risk of not only of a tornado, but a strong tornado. EF2 or higher. Shreveport, same deal. And everybody here in this yellow hatched risk area. The brown, you got a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. In the green, it's a 2% risk. So hopefully it shows your area on here. What about the wind outlook? Like I said, the entire red area, a 30% chance of seeing winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. The yellow area is a 15% risk of that. Okay. We look at the hail outlook. All right, the yellow area, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But if you look at this black outline region down here, this is where they're thinking these supercells that could develop are semi-discrete supercells. They could produce very large hail. So in this black outline region, you got a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger, which there's no really, I mean, there is towns and cities, like communities, I would say. I don't think there's a full-fledged city in this area, just some small towns and communities here in eastern sections of Texas. So if you live in this area, please be mindful of these supercells capable of producing tornadoes and very large hail. And of course, you got the damaging wind threat. But here it is right here. So let's go on and just dive deep into what the radar is going to look like. So we'll just focus in on Texas on this. And then we're going to include Arkansas and surrounding states. Unfortunately, there's not really a good panel for like eastern Texas. I wish there was. But this morning, you're dealing with this line of storms. And You're going to continue to deal with it throughout the morning hours. But as you can tell, it begins to lose some steam. But we're getting closer to it's around lunchtime. If you're confused about what time frame we're at, you guys know I'm bad about mentioning the time frame, every minute. But it says 1 p.m., but back this up 1 hour because this is in Central Time. So this is around lunchtime today. If you notice, this area right here begins to kind of fend off of this area right here. Kind of begins to leave this area is a better word here. And then we start to get some more storms firing right into here. Dallas-Fort Worth area right into here. So southeast of that region. And then if you notice, we start to get to 2 p.m. This is where the southern flank of these storms become dangerous. A lot of ingredients supporting severe weather, especially thermodynamics. I mean, it's going to be very humid in this area. It's going to, a lot of storm fuel, CAPE levels will be high. And then you'll have that low-level wind field that's going to begin to increase in this area, providing what we call low-level shear for a tornado threat. So we start to get into 3 p.m., you start to get these what we call semi-discrete supercells. Not completely discrete. They could be, but you start to really get some bad storms. And then you start to get into like 5 p.m. around dinner time. Look at this cell right up here where Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas meet. Look at these storms up here in eastern Oklahoma, which we'll talk more on here in a second. But let's just focus in on Texas here. Look at these storms. All these will have the capability of producing very large hail and tornadoes and damaging winds, all threats. So if you live here in eastern Texas, it's 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and you could get some flash flooding in this area too. Notice these storms don't move much. The tilt on them is really going diagonal, which means these storms are kind of training over the same areas. But all threats, with all hazards is possible with these storms here. And you keep going, and these kind of surge into Louisiana, and then Shreveport, you got to watch out later this evening. And then this turns into a pretty nasty line of storms for eastern, and I would say more so northeastern, especially at this point, Texas. This is like 11 p.m., midnight, slow-moving, nasty line of storms all the way into the wee hours of the morning. So you look at the significant tornado parameter. Watch how it begins to spike as that low-level jet, which we'll talk about here in a second, begins to ramp up. So, it's around 1 p.m. You start to, anywhere where you see colors, you have ingredients for severe weather. The higher the numbers on this map, the better the ingredients for tornadoes. So watch how it begins to cluster up right in here, and your significant tornado parameters begin to spike to over a 6, 7, 8 right here in this region. This is where I think this is where the Storm Prediction Center, the experts are saying, hey, the highest threat of tornadoes is going to be right in here. And this begins to spike as ingredients are just feeding into these storms from the south and southeast. And, we got to watch this line of storms overnight. You notice all the ingredients are supported for tornadoes. Line of storms right here eating up all this fuel. So you got to watch out. And if you look at the updraft Felicity swath from this, let's back it up a little bit here. Right into here. So this is picking up on this line right now, which is probably a little overdone. But if you notice as we're getting, watch right in here. Watch as we start to, this is around, 1 p.m. this afternoon. Watch how you start to see those highlighted areas. You see how that all showed up right into here? Like all this stuff. I wish I had my cursor up so I could draw on this. Everything right into here is from this morning. Everything right into here. Look at this nasty. And if you don't know what the updraft Felicity swath is it's basically what this particular model is trying to indicate where rotation is with these storms. Just because you have rotation in a storm doesn't mean you're going to have a tornado. You really need that tight rotation, but it means that the storm's rotating, which means it's a supercell, which has the capability of producing a tornado. And these storms will be rotating in this region today. So, look at this thing. It is lit up from the updraft Felicity swath. So please be careful in Texas today. So we move up, and we're going to include many states in this. Obviously, Arkansas. We're going to include southern sections of Missouri. We're going to talk about eastern Oklahoma, and we'll probably throw northeast Texas and northern Louisiana in and again. So this morning, you're dealing with this weakening line of storms. You still could pack a punch somewhat, but they're weakening fast this morning. What did these storms do with the atmosphere? So I think that by the time we get into mid-afternoon, you'll start to just pretty much be done with this. In fact, the leftover energy could refire back up in southern Missouri. And then we start to see these storms out in eastern Oklahoma. Now, there's a chance, even though Tulsa, for example, is in a slight risk, might not get really anything. These storms might fire up east of Tulsa. But all these storms immediately start to produce an all-hazard situation. It's around 4 p.m. If you live in extreme eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, if you live in western Arkansas, you're starting to look to your west, your southwest. You're seeing these storms coming out of, southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas. And look at this nasty storm right here based off the HRRR model. And this makes sense. It's right in the middle, right in the heart of that 10% risk of a tornado area. And these continue. The hope is this goes linear fast, which means it just turns into a line of storms. And the tornado threat may decrease a little bit. But look at this discrete cell right here, again, around 7 p.m. And all the way up in the southern sections of Missouri, we'll have a tornado risk too, but I think you got to get a little bit further south. So at this time, there's kind of two things going on here. If the HRRR model is correct, this is around 9 p.m., the sun's setting. You got this line of storms up here, and everything on the southern flank of this line of storms could produce tornadoes, very large hail, damaging winds. And you keep this going, and this is around like 1 a.m. You still kind of have a line of storms sweeping through southern, southeastern, eventually into the Boot Heel, Missouri. But it looks like it's starting to lose some steam, but you still got to watch out. And then you got this nasty line of storms sweeping through this northern half of Louisiana, really packing a punch. Already at this point, it kind of starts to move through Shreveport right as you're probably laying the kids down for bed. This starts to get into the Alexandria region, like the wee hours of the morning. And, I do think that you guys could wake up to some storms for your Monday morning in western areas of Mississippi. I just think they'll lose some steam by the time you get into tomorrow morning. So that's how the evolution of the storm is going to be. We'll kind of recap that really fast. I do think storms will fire up pretty dramatically in eastern Oklahoma around 3 to 4 p.m. And, of course, you got to watch everything that's coming out of northeast Texas, too. You're going to have that tornado threat, especially, I would say, late afternoon, early evening hours in areas of Arkansas and just this region right into here. Right as the sun is starting to get low in the sky, I do think that this will be a higher tornado threat, maybe a little bit earlier in the day, but we'll see what happens compared to yesterday. Significant tornado parameter. You can see that the atmosphere gets worked early on, and then as we start to get into lunchtime, you start to see how it begins to spike a little bit in eastern Oklahoma, and certainly in this region right here, the Texarkana region. And we start to get into about 5, 6 p.m. Look how these parameters start to spike to over a 5, 6, and 7 little pockets, even higher in this region, and we're going to have that tornado threat. It's around 7 p.m. Look here in western, southwestern Arkansas. You really just got to watch this area right in here. For sure. And then peters out. It's done. I wouldn't say it's done, but the threat for tornadoes really drops off, I would say, after midnight. And same thing, you look at the updraft velocity swath. We'll back this up a little bit. This is for really what's happening this morning. And then we start to get into about later this afternoon, this evening. And yeah, it actually shows kind of the two areas to watch for. One up here surging through areas of Arkansas, southern Missouri, and then down here. And then you could have to watch for some semi-discrete supercells right in here. And if we look at the latest run, which only takes us to about midnight, you're starting to see more of highlighted areas right into here now. Right through southwestern Arkansas. And then look out around the Shreveport region too. Okay, so go a little bit up the road. We'll include areas of the Midwest at this point, the rest of southern Iowa, all of Missouri, and then Illinois. Same thing. We're dealing with these showers and storms this morning. This will begin to weaken. Now, the surface low is way up here. So I would watch out right here around Kansas City, western Missouri. I think you're really lacking thermodynamics, but I do think you'll have ingredients for severe weather up in here. Very splotchy in nature here. I think you're going to have a hard time getting just an all hazards threat up here, but I do think you kind of have like a small scale all hazards threat, kind of a smaller risk for everything, if you will, if that makes any sense. But you start to get, into, 6 p.m. We're starting to get some storms up here, like in southeast Iowa, northern Missouri, northeast Missouri. And then some storms become more widespread, once again, in central Missouri. and then getting into eastern Missouri. And then, this is around 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Some storms starting to make their way through the St. Louis region. We got some storms kind of scattered about. Well, I would say more so congealed together, but they just don't look as alarming on this run of the 8RRR model. This is around 11 p.m., around getting close to midnight. Storms are probably more intense the further south you get, but you got storms working through the St. Louis area, Peoria region. And then you got storms working through the Boot Hill, Missouri, southern sections of Illinois, but they just don't look as intense up here. But that doesn't mean they couldn't be. So, same thing, we're just going to look at the updraft Felicity swath up here, and, this is getting to about midday. And then, you see some highlight areas near the surface low up here in Iowa. I would watch for a spin up or two up here. Okay. And then, I would watch maybe into southeastern Missouri overnight, into Illinois, but certainly not as high end of a tornado threat as you got to your neighbors to the south, but still there. So be mindful of these storms. So we'll talk briefly on the ingredients. Starting off this morning, as you know, in eastern Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, eastern Oklahoma, you're very humid this morning. Dew points in the 60s, but you keep this going, we start to get into about, this afternoon. You got pockets right where those supercells could form of dew points in the low 70s. You're going to feel like severe weather is coming. You're going to feel it in the air. But widespread upper 60s for dew points. And if you're a new viewer and you're thinking, what are you talking about with dew points? Well, dew points is what we call an ingredient for severe weather. Well, it's not what we call it, but it's just a measure of how humid it is in the air. And it's what we call a thermodynamic, which is, you get higher thermodynamics, higher dew points, you get a better shot, better ingredients for severe weather. So the higher the dew points, typically the more higher the CAPE levels, storm energy in the atmosphere. So therefore, it's going to be pretty high in pockets in these areas. Look at this plume of moist air deep down here. But, upper 60s, low 70s, plenty of moist air enough for severe weather. So it's going to be there. Next thing I want to look at, this is going to be interesting. The Storm Prediction Center discusses this also. Low-level jet already ramping through the area. It's going to kind of let off a little bit throughout the morning, early afternoon, but it'll kind of stay in place. And as you can tell, right into here, you got this 40, 50 knot low-level jet that gets ramping, becomes very isolated, but in one area, concentrated almost. And you, like I said, 40, 45, 50 knot low-level jet, low-level shears ramping through here. And this is right where that 10% risk of a tornado is, right in here. You see how there's hardly no low-level jet back here or over here. It's really situated right into here. So when I say low-level jet, I'm talking about winds about a mile above our heads from the surface. So, winds going at about, low-end interstate speed right above your head. So you got this stout southerly flow right over this region. Low-level shear is ripping, and that's where you're going to have that tornado threat right into here. Right where, like I said, the Texarkana, right where Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas and Louisiana kind of almost meet right into there. That's where your highest tornado threat's going to be. And then, of course, the low-level jet gets displaced. Weak cold front moves in, and then we're done. So that's the severe weather breakdown for today. Stay safe out there, guys. Hope that helped you. The southeast, quiet weather again. Kind of overcast, mostly cloudy, maybe partly cloudy if you get lucky skies. Just ridge of high pressure dominating the area, not allowing for really any moisture to get going. Yesterday was a little bit of a surprise. We had some scattered showers here in central South Carolina. Really wasn't expecting it. Just happens sometimes. But this afternoon could get the same thing. If you live in the Carolinas, maybe Georgia, could get an isolated shower or two. Don't let it surprise you. This evening could get some scattered downpours, showers in southern Florida. And, as we can tell, you can see over there in Mississippi, some of these storms will start to greet you guys in southern half of Mississippi tomorrow morning. But the immediate southeast, there's not a whole lot to talk about today. Now, the northeast, a little bit different. We got some flow on top of this ridge. You could get some scattered storms today. Anywhere from like northern PA through the entire state of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. Look at these little storms working their way through. This is around 5 p.m., and these could produce some small hail. They could, some gusty winds. So don't let this catch you by surprise. You got a general risk of thunderstorms up here. Not everybody will see it, but by the time we get into about 8 p.m., these storms could be making a ruckus here in Scranton, getting into northern New Jersey, New York City region, Connecticut. So we could get some flow aloft on top of this ridge, literally a northwest flow, working its way through. Could be somewhat of a stormy afternoon. And then we get some energy that moves in again, And it could be a kind of a similar day Monday, but we'll see what happens. But I don't think it'll be as widespread. But we do got some storms up here in Ontario. Check this out. As we're getting into maybe like the overnight hours, maybe some low rumbles of thunder. And then we look in the south central U.S., of course, we've already broke this down pretty much. I don't want to ignore my folks in eastern Kansas today. You guys could definitely get some storms for sure. We'll see what happens. I don't know if the atmosphere becomes a little bit more stable behind this low. We just got to see what kind of thermodynamics are still left in place here. Could get some gusty winds, some small hail. Then we get into this afternoon, this evening. Of course, like I said, we've already discussed the storms, but could get some moisture that dances around out here in eastern Colorado. We had just kind of a weird snow event yesterday. You guys have to let me know what you saw. Could get some showers in northeast New Mexico. We'll see what happens. But then we get to tomorrow morning, the atmosphere clears out and you get a little bit of a break. North central U.S., the immediate surface low is going to continue to bring some showers, maybe even some storms on kind of the northern, northeast side, northwest side of this surface low right in here. It's going to bring some widespread rains up into Wisconsin, some rains up here in the northern lower Michigan, some rains up here in the southern half of Minnesota. I don't think these storms will pack a punch just because you're lacking really ingredients for severe weather. So more so just some heavy rain, maybe some low rumbles of thunder, maybe some small hail. Could get some storms, guys, in like central Iowa today. Don't let this catch you by surprise. You definitely are right near the surface low, but we will watch for some severe weather in this area today. But you'll continue to move into the overnight hours, and we could get a pocket of a wintry mix here in areas of like northeast, like South Dakota. Could get a little bit of a wintry mix here in central Minnesota overnight. We'll see what happens. Could switch to an all-out heavy wet snow in eastern sections of the Dakotas, and then all the way up here in the northern, northwestern sections of Minnesota. We could get a wintry mix up here in northeast Minnesota also, and then we're kind of getting into Monday, getting some scattered showers and storms up here into this region. So western U.S., pretty quiet. We do have some moisture across the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, dancing around Wyoming. Higher elevation snow, way higher elevation snow. Lower elevation, just rain showers, Seattle, Portland, Eugene, maybe. You guys will get it. And just some scattered moisture across the region. There it is. A little bit of cold air works in. Might switch maybe a little bit more lower elevations to some snow. But the immediate central and southern Rockies, for the most part, quiet, especially the southwest. You guys will have a nice Sunday out ahead of you. So, eastern U.S., central U.S., as far as temperatures will warm up very nicely all the way up into lower Michigan, where you'll get into the 70s, 80s in the Ohio Valley areas of the Midwest, Mid-South, 80s, Southeast, 70s and 80s. It'll be a nice little warm pocket in the Mid-Atlantic where somebody might get into the mid to upper 80s. Nice day in the Northeast. Even up to Maine. 60s and 70s. A little weak cold front moves in behind this main energy, so just 60s and 70s. 70s for your cleaning up here in central Oklahoma. I know you got a lot of damage you got to clean up with. But pocket of cooler air on the colder side of this surface low up here with just 40s, even just some 30s up here in the northern plains and the north central U.S. Temperatures out west, not too bad. It really isn't. The southwest is nice and warm. Just some moisture might keep certain areas pretty cool, but another nice day in eastern half of Montana and even the high plains of eastern Wyoming. So, Texas, 70s and 80s. Moving forward, losing some steam. These videos have been very long over the last couple of days. There's another threat of severe weather for tomorrow, not near as high end, we don't think. This could upgrade to a slight risk. It very well could. The entire state of Louisiana, you might as well say, has a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. Just leftover moisture down here that's going to allow for some storm development. But if you notice, a large section of the country tomorrow runs a risk of some thunderstorms. This is a huge area. So we'll see what happens. And then we get into Tuesday. We now have another slight risk up for some of those same areas that saw that weather Friday. Kansas City up through Des Moines, Ames, Omaha, Lincoln. You guys, level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Here it comes again. I promise you, in the eastern U.S., not everybody will agree. But we'll take some of the storms for you. No crazy life-threatening storms. We'll take some nice late spring thunderstorms over here. We need some rain. And then once again, for Wednesday, we already have a day 4 15% risk, slight risk for the central and southern plains. And we'll talk more on this here in the coming videos and what's driving this. But let's just leave it here for now and really just see what happens for today. God bless all y'all. Stay safe once again out there today, please, and take the weather serious. God bless all y'all and have a wonderful Sunday.